myself can talk about the overall project, the studio, the business side of stuff, running the team, kind of gathering up Avengers Assemble, kind of, if you will, for building the team and putting the studio together. I think we'll have a few other folks showing up too. Folks said they might be able to get in, sometime between 10:30 and 11. But real quick, introduce Franz. Did you want to say anything about yourself or your background? I didn't want to speak for you, but
no problem. Matt just brought Optimus Prime, excuse me, brought up his image here.
Yeah,
I wanted to look at those before.
I can talk through some of this if you guys like.
Perfect. Oh, I see some of the yin yang stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, here, let me see as a gallery. Maybe that's the way to do it here. So yeah, some of these you'll have to keep me honest. Maybe they did come out, some of them, but I don't think Shuri ever actually made it. But if she did, then awesome, you guys got to play her.
Nah, Shuri never did anything.
And then I don't think we ever got Kang out. Then this was a version of the Mandarin that even if we did do a Mandarin, see, it's been so long I can't remember, but I don't think these guys came out. So I don't think we got Mandarin out. Moon Knight, don't think he ever got made. This version of, at the time, Captain Marvel was only a guy. This wasn't even that long ago, but like there was no, they hadn't given the name Captain Marvel to Carol Danvers. So she was still considered Ms. Marvel or Warbird or one of those other personas. And so this particular version was her Ms. Marvel persona. And way before the current Ms. Marvel. Nightcrawler, I don't think we ever got him out. Here's a Professor X. Sebastian Shaw. It's funny to see some of these too because you know, a lot of these, they seem like they might be referencing some current stuff, but like, because I know there's a new Moon Knight thing coming out, but this is, you know, gosh, so long ago. Okay, so this was one of our first new ones, was this guy, Shadowcaster. So this was one of the character designs. This is one of the ones that we came up with, what his powers and look and everything would be, and Marvel signed off on it, and we were getting ready to release him. I don't think he ever came out, though. Shang-Chi. And he's getting a movie now, too, so that's cool. Kind of fun. Squirrel Girl. This is another one. His name was, oh gosh, maybe it was just Tattoo, but the idea was like with him that he could bring his tattoos to life and summon them. He did actually come out, but he was super rare. Like, because you had to get him through a certain DLC and you had to put a code in to get him, I think. And I don't remember if this suit came out. So some of these I threw in here just because I wasn't super sure. I don't think Tigra ever made it in. Viper, I don't think made it in. This version of Whiplash, I think we did. This was actually, not that it didn't make it, or not that we didn't have time. This one actually, we decided not to do it in the end, I think. This one did get in, so I think this one actually did make it into the playable. So then we had two, yeah, Yin and Yang. Jason was calling these out before. Yin and Yang. I think this is Yin and this is Yang. Then Yuriko. And that's it for the characters. Then I've got some environments too. So this was
there we go. That's what I was looking to find.
Yeah, awesome. Some of these locations were beautiful. Now this was something we were going to do because Sanctum did show up in the Halloween content. Yep. But this aspect of it never got a chance to. Also, the artist who worked on this, you'll notice his name down there on the corner, Brett Bean, has gone on to do Rocket and Groot cartoons with Scotty Young. So he's become really prolific in his own right now as a comic book dude. So super happy for him, but we got the chance to work with him on our team back in these days. So it was super fun. Interior of Sanctum, some of the wild magic realm stuff. And then we were going to do some Atlantis. So this was one of the shots of where you might be able to play in Atlantis. Here's some of the sunken city from inside one of the bubble areas, looking out into the city. Oh, up on the deck of the like playable space on the top of the helicarrier. In Kunlun. So we were going to spend some time in the magical city of Kunlun, which looked something like this. This was going to be one I was really super excited to create.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, this was so beautiful. Done by a really remarkable artist, Rob Johnson, who is kind of part of the family with all of us. Like he worked with us on all this stuff. He's super talented. In fact, if anybody's keeping up with Falcon and Winter Soldier, not this week's episode, but last week's episode, they actually ended up going to Madripoor. So this was our version of Madripoor. It's meant to be a more sci-fi city. It didn't look super sci-fi in that one, but in the comics it was, and this was our version of that. You know, maybe you guys know about Planet Hulk, which was kind of featured in Ragnarok, a sort of version of that. And so this was some of the Colosseum stuff we were looking at for doing our own version of Planet Hulk. The Savage Lands, this is what the Savage Lands might have looked like. Some of the areas where like canyon dwellings this was back on the Planet Hulk one. And then you remember the junkyards, those massive junkyards from Ragnarok where all the debris from other realities were crashing in. This was that area. Now this was an interesting thing we were going to do. We were calling it, there was this whole mission arc about PIM particles. So in this one, you shrunk to be microscopic. And then here you're small enough that you're running around on the desktop like the science lab in Hank Pym's lab. And then another version where you actually got blown up and you were like the city was small compared to you. So you were going to be running around in a city like this. Then Wakanda. I mean, that was another place we were super excited to get going. The mines of Wakanda. And that's it. Those were the unreleased stuff. And there's some other stuff I'll show with everybody just because I don't know if everyone's into this. We would do stuff internally that was super fun. Just because we were excited, we all loved this all so much. So we were listening to a lot of the music from the game, and we started making album covers. So we did this takeoff on the Beatles. This one takeoff of Rio. The Boss. And this was from
Nirvana.
Nirvana, thank you. Yeah, from Nirvana. And some things that maybe fans didn't get a chance to see a lot of were how we would reproduce things like this is the Avengers. When the original movie was coming out, they did this beautiful mock-up, and we did the same thing with our characters. But we did other stuff too, where like this was the very first cover of Miles Morales, and we did our version of it. We were actually featured as an advertisement in that one. Then we did things like this, where we'd go in and look at classic covers and we'd reproduce them and recreate them. And so we did a bunch of these. We were just really excited to rebuild, even like things like the old Sea Monkeys ad and changing it into Space Scrolls. And then just a lot of fun when we would put out things like this, the holiday stuff. And boy, there's just so much here. We just loved it. There was nothing we couldn't do. So I'll tell you this, I'll stop on this image and talk about it for a second. What we would do is when a new character would get kicked off, we would go into a room and we'd debrief the room about like, what's the important aspects of this character? Because not everybody always knew. And then we'd share what we thought was resonant about the character and what would be funny. And then we'd just start telling jokes to each other. And the ones that were the funniest and most interesting became power emotes. And this is one that was interesting because we came up with this power emote about the Punisher coming out. And almost like they weren't really friends. They were almost like rivals or something. And the Punisher would keep showing up. Well, it actually ended up becoming a character that's listed in Marvel character history, and was kind of beloved by us. In fact, we ended up making T-shirts of the Punisher, like just to wear, because we thought it was so fun. But that's kind of how we would go about coming up with new characters and their ideas for what the characters would be and that type of stuff. So those are some old comic covers. Yeah, maybe I should stop there and let everybody else talk a little bit.
No, you're doing great, because that's a lot of the stuff I was hoping to find, and I was searching my hard drives and trying to find a lot of the stuff. I'm
Yeah,
hoping
I'll tell you,
I'm
I
hoping
held
we
on
might
to
have
this stuff like a miser.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this
is
stuff
the
is
limited
really interesting.
edition- Yeah, the limited edition comic guide How to Play.
Which had these were what the old missions looked like. Even like these mission dialogues that were like sort of like daily bugle posts. They were lovingly crafted. Everything in this game, we just loved it so much. It taught me one thing. So I remember when we took this this project on, Marvel had another one that our sister studio worked on, which was meant to be the big Marvel MMO that was going to be worked on. Well, that was besieged with people trying to figure out what it should be. And meanwhile, Superhero Squad got to be whatever it wanted to be. We weren't overly burdened with trying to, toe the company line or something. We got to just have fun with it, because I guess nobody expected it to be so resonant. And so we just got to have fun. And it was the most enjoyable game I probably ever worked on in my life. It also says a lot about the studio culture. It was a really great studio to work at. Lifelong friends, as far as I was concerned. Oh, and we don't talk enough about the card game. Did you folks all love playing the card game? I got to say, that card game was a lot of fun. I loved it.
It was my favorite part of the entire game.
Yeah, I could play that thing for days on end. I just go in there and jump in. Yeah, it was really good.
And I didn't get a chance to track down Devin, but the the lead designer for the Superhero Squad collectible card game was Devin Lowe. Devin is somewhat famous in the games industry for his work at Magic the Gathering, but he also then went on to work on a couple of other board games that are fairly popular with the Marvel license. And then he also is still in the games industry and went over to PopCap at Electronic Arts and that kind of thing. So great guy. Not just Devin, but the whole team that worked on the CCG feature put in a lot of work on that. And I really want to hats off to everybody on the team. Just an amazing team to put together. And the reason why we called ourselves the Amazing Society was not only do you have to build, and find a group of amazing individuals, but you have to get them to come together as a team, and that's the society part. So the amazing is how great as individuals everybody was, but the society meant, that we come together working as a team. And so, the animation team got to see their animations work in the card game and the brawler and the social space, right? So by doing the CCG the way we did, we got to leverage a lot of the characters. Every character that you got, had cards as well as equipment for the headquarters. Hey, Matt, do you happen, Optimus Prime, do you happen to have that video that showed the tests that we went through for the art style?
I do. The one thing that's weird about it, so I had it in a PowerPoint, and I am on a Mac right now, so you can guess PowerPoint doesn't work great on this. The problem with it is the videos are short and they're meant to sit there and loop. And so they play one time, so it's kind of hard to see the different art style tests, but I do have them. I can kind of show them.
Yeah, or even if you have those, part of that PowerPoint had the environment shot, the static shot too, I think, of the different art styles. One of the things that we went through before we really got into production, of course, was really trying to nail the art style. And here, my hat's off to Optimus Prime and the team for having really given it a lot of thought about how to bring this product to life. There's a lot of different choices, it turns out, in how to implement just the core idea of Marvel Superhero Squad. And so we spent quite a bit of time before we got into going, really thinking deeply about what the implications were for a variety of different choices in art style.
Let me see if there's some. Oh, you know what? I have a PDF that might work. Let me see if I can get some of this to play for you guys.
Yeah. Now I was able to also, for you folks, I think there was some questions about some unreleased features. I actually happen to have one of our PvP features up and running on my desktop. We nicknamed it LOSH, or League of Superheroes. And so when we get done with Optimus Prime's section, I'll go ahead and show that. There was about 3 or 4 different extra features that we were looking at adding to the project, including more PvP features, and including, as you saw, some of the concept art there for some more of the social zones. But the whole goal of the project was to continually expand and touch on all the different things that the Marvel Cinematic Universe was going to touch into, so we could tie into what's happening not only in the comics, what was happening in the animated cartoon, that was a lot of fun, or what was happening in toys, but really this crossover between the movies, and that's why we added in Asgard when the first Thor movie came out. There we go. Yeah, that's the presentation I was thinking of.
So this is a PDF, so it won't animate, but like, gosh, if I'll see if I can remember how this presentation went. It was something about like,
From the comics.
yeah, when we started talking about this project, we were looking at the comic books, the toy line that was coming out, because at the time, Superhero Squad was also a toy line that was doing really well. And then there was the TV show. And so we thought about what is the mood that we want the game to feel like and have. We all got together and we put up all our ideas in this room. And we'd go and put Post-it notes on what was resonating, what wasn't, to kind of come up with like, what are some really strong directions we believe in? So one of them was like, what if we made it feel just like the cartoon show, so that it's like toon shaded and it feels, like you take the experience you feel in the TV show and come right in and start playing. The next was, gosh, I don't remember what, I guess this was us mocking up what that might look like. Then we also thought, well, what if we tried to make it look more like comic books, and we used like a hard ink shader or something like that. And then the last one was, what if we made it look more toy-like, and we brought in aspects of, vinyl toys and that type of thing into the art style. So we laid them all out and we like tried different aspects, because the one thing that wasn't changing was the overall character design. Then we started putting them into different scene mock-ups and said, okay, let's see what each one of these might look like, rendered out. And then we did, this would have been a little video test. This is the part that doesn't work quite right, but you can just imagine it moving. We had a little animation on Iron Man there. And so we did each one in a different animation. Now this last one here, as we showed it to Marvel, and we did other tricks too. There's a technique that you might have heard of called tilt shift. And it's basically, you put a blurry line on an image, and other games do this. In fact, the latest remake of Zelda Awakening, is that the one? Just used tilt shift in their art style. So they did the same kind of technique. But it was in order to make it feel like a toy, so that it had that sort of soft, accessible feeling. And then this was just me talking about pipeline and then building out the different worlds. And here you can really see that tilt shift in this. So at one point we were going to have a live 3D map where you could move the helicarrier over the surface of the world, and it would have looked something like that if we had gone that direction. All right, there you go. That was the piece Jason was talking about. Hopefully that was fun and interesting.
That is the PowerPoint I was trying to find. Yep. Thank you so much. That's great. Let me switch over and see if I can get this up and running and share it for you guys. Before I do, why don't we just say, open it back up over to you guys. And is there any specific questions on the art that we've shown, or any other specific questions that are sort of more art related, since Optimus Prime is primed up? Anything, Crab Foo?
I was just going to make a mention when you were showing all the characters and quite a few of the ones that he showed that he thought weren't in the game actually did make it to the game, such as Moon Knight, Nightcrawler, several. Of course, if he ever wants to download the current iteration of the game and check it out,
That's
go ahead.
No, that makes me happy to hear that those made it in. There was as a developer, it's a funny list of things that happen. So there's a lot of work you create that will not make it into the game for a lot of reasons. And some of them is the IP holder. Some of it is internal reasons. Like we chose one character over another character and there's only so much time to create them. And then the last one was, as our studio was shutting down, the live operations went to another, basically to the Northern California group, and they ran it for a little while. So I wasn't ever sure if in the last, year of its life, if some of these actually did go online. It was our hope that they would, but we weren't sure. So there was a list of things. That's why I was a little fuzzy. I wasn't sure which ones made it in the end.
Yeah, they actually ran it for almost 3.5, 4 years after we moved on.
Oh, so yeah, so and we gave them everything we could. So, and you get busy as a developer, so your focus is elsewhere. But I was hoping those things had come through. That's great. That's good to know. Well, hopefully there's a few surprises in there though that you hadn't seen.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, there was quite a few characters that never seen before. Amazing to see them.
All right, so I am going to go ahead and show you guys something that definitely you've probably never heard of or seen. This is only one. We had the team work on quite a few different possible designs for new game features. In addition to the CCG and the brawler and the headquarters and everything else. Is my screen showing up?
I can see it.
Okay, great. I'm gonna run this as standalone. So this is a sample prototype of a sort of a head-on 1v1 game design that we were considering adding, nicknamed LOSH, or League of Superheroes. An overhead view, and you've got a bunch of stuff on your side. It's been a while since I played this, so I might screw this up, but basically kind of a MOBA. Bots past the other. Take down the tower without dying. Go. Tower. There and take it down. And the base, which wasn't finished. destroy the base in this version, but all right. So that was a quick sample of an unreleased feature, just exploration. We had several different ways that we were looking at adding more PvP, and that was just one of them. But happy to answer questions and also recognize some of the other folks that are here. So we've got Irritable Vowel, which was a great nickname for our lead on the headquarters. So Crab Foo, if you've got some specific questions that relate to the headquarters and or Franz, if you've got some of the other stuff that you could explain about that you worked on the whole challenge system, if I remember right.
Yeah, and the challenge system, but that came once I was the live team product owner. I was the PO for the UI team, and did a lot of the balancing and stuff that we had. And I was also played Dr. No and told people no, trying to get things done on time.
Looks like we also have the coordinatrix, which I'd love to welcome. One of our great producers on the project is online with us. Hello.
Hello, did this work?
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Awesome. Nice to be here. It's been fun doing a little bit of a ride in the Wayback Machine. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I still have the sign off on the whiteboard from our original sign off on April 15th, about 10 years ago. I do. I'm a producer. I keep lots of wacky stuff, just like Matt has all the amazing art.
So you have a lot of the. You've got a picture of it?
I do. Let me see. I was going to try and I was digging it up while you guys were talking. I was trying to find it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was our last, right as we got everything done, we had everybody just do a whiteboard sign off on the game. Here, let me see if I can find it, share this with you guys. It's not super clear because it was a while ago, but let's see if I can. Okay, I don't think I've ever done a share screen thing on this, so let me see if I can figure out how to do this.
Yeah, Discord was not even a dream back then. So.
AWS was not even a dream. Yeah,
so if you guys don't know, we're actually using Unity. We started using Unity when it was in version 2. So 2009. Basically, we got going in April of 2009, right at the end of March.
See if this works.
And I see.
Can you see it?
It's loading on my screen. Yes, I do see it.
Yep.
So you've got live sign off QA, gazillion operations. There's Jason.
Yeah.
So we had Eric and I think this was Cameron and George did the sign off for platform. And then, oh gosh, who was the server lead? And then I can't read everybody's writing. But yeah, everybody did the sign off. You can see we did. Now you know exactly what time we signed off the game.
Go.
10 years ago. Go!
4/15/2011, 8:38 p.m. Yep. I remember getting late, and we were like, okay, so we're doing this or not? And there you go, 4/15/2011. Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, it'd be 10 years in what, 4 days or something like that?
Yeah, we're 4 days short of 10 years.
Thursday, yeah.
That is awesome. Can you send me that? That is so cool.
Yeah, I would be glad to. I still have the old style guide because I worked with Franz on the UI and UX, so I did a lot of the UX work on. So it may have been a producer, but I also did a lot of UI UX, and I was also the product owner for the platform, for the back end. So among many other things, and I became the live producer once we actually took the game live, and so managed all the updates on our what I think it was our Thursday night updates, because that was the time when nobody was playing at 9 o'clock at night on Thursdays.
Yeah, it was
Lots of fun
interesting.
memories coming back.
We could definitely see, you know, and track after school was a lot of a lot of kids jumping on and playing. You know, we knew we could watch the wave from East Coast of the United States to the West Coast of kids getting off of school and getting home and jumping right online. So we could just see that traffic boost, you know, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern roughly, and running all the way through the West Coast. And then also when Gazillion did do some advertising for us, which wasn't often, unfortunately, but we could see 5 minutes, really 30 seconds to 5 minutes after that TV ad ran on Cartoon Network, we would see a boost, just a massive boost in traffic as well. So,
You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that made making this game special was that we all had kids the ages that we were targeting. I was a Boy Scout leader at the time, and we would bring them in to like play test the game, and the kids would tell us what they were excited about, and we made sure we listened. It was really super fun. It was really cool.
in fact, I will show one of those videos. If you guys keep talking, I'm going to pull up one of those videos.
My
Yeah,
daughter.
if you wonder where the circular I can't even remember what we call them anymore, the two hubs in the two corner came from, it actually came from watching the kids play.
Oh
So
yeah,
we actually watched them play, and they had so much trouble controlling their mice, and then like you'd watch the kid get like totally stretched out on the desk because his couldn't pull his mouse back. That the hubs actually came out of watching the kids play and making sure we called it the Power Plus. There was an area that was a kind of a plus in the middle of the screen that the kids could control the mouse in. As soon as you got into the corners, they didn't go to the corners. So we just figured out how to keep them, the controls kind of keep the middle of the plus clean, so that when the kids had to intentionally move to the UI, right? That way they wouldn't misclick. Because we originally started with the standard bar at the bottom of the screen, and they just had stuff popping in front of them all the time, and they were screaming at the screen. So we had to move that out of their way. And so that's where the hubs came from. Watching the players play.
I'd forgotten about that story. I remember now. There were some things that users would do that my daughter was talking about that we kind of left because it was so charming. There was a bug where if you went into Asgard and you turned, I think it was Emma Stone, or Emma Frost, Emma Stone, Emma Frost, and she would turn to Diamond, and then you sat on the throne. It did a little glitch where you would stay Diamond instead of going back to your normal state, so you could run around the map as that. And we just sort of let that one go because it was fun.
I think one of the art stories that I remember, Matt, was the Hulk's feet. You remember the Hulk's feet issue?
No, what was the issue? I forgot.
So when we were doing Hulk, and part of it was like a lot of the stuff that I did as well was submitting for Marvel approval. So we never know what they would say no to or not like. But the two I remember most were Hulk's feet, and our team had basically set him up exactly the same way as the model, but Marvel kept telling us it was wrong. And basically all we did was change if I remember correctly, how deep the shadow was on his feet, and it got approved. Because they thought his feet were too big.
Gosh, I do remember that now, and it's
right?
Gosh, that's for anybody who's listening that has been wondering about game development. It's often like that. Like you get a lot of really specific feedback that isn't really maybe the right thing, and so you got to kind of use your intuition to actually try to figure out what it is they mean. And then when you find it, it's like it was shading on the feet. It was not.
Yep.
Not
I think the other one that was funny was the And this is the funny one with where all the heroes had, you know, their rude noise, but yet when we tried to put the dog peeing on the fire hydrant, they hated it, and that was like we had to pull that right away.
Oh, right. Yeah, like that was too
Remember that?
much, right? We crossed some
Yeah, they
line.
thought that was over. Yep. They didn't say no to us very often. You know, having, you know, like I said, part of the role here and as a producer, usually, you know, trying to get all the approvals from Marvel for the different things, from text to art. And I loved working with Marvel too because, you know, they, even if they couldn't attend our sprint reviews and see what we were building, they regularly watched and gave feedback on the videos that we did because we taped it every 2 weeks. And I'll ask both Jason and I think Rich joined us. I don't think they said no to us very often.
Not very often. They loved a lot of our ideas, and from the very beginning when we did that pitch where you saw Optimus Prime sharing, you know, the possible art styles, they just said, you know, oh, you nailed it. That's just so awesome. Go for it. And that was cool. I don't know if everybody can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll run a quick little video here. It's only a minute and 15 seconds, but this is an example of what we would try to do as often as possible, is bring actual customers in, really listen to them for their feedback. This happens to be one of the sessions that we recorded some highlights from. This is one of our other producers who ran this component. She's now a professor at DigiPen. Fantastic person to work with as well. We had just an amazing society of a team. But let me just run this and let me know if you can hear it as well.
Choose your hero. Go ahead and pick the hero you want to be for now.
Like Iron Man, Thor, Iron Man, Wolverine, War Machine.
I like War Machine.
How about you?
War Machine. They all have something special, but I liked Iron Man on the game. So.
Human Torch.
Like Human Torch?
Thor, he was pretty cool.
Both of you really like Thor?
Mm-hmm. He's one of my favorite characters, though.
If you were to give it like stars, you know, 4 stars means awesome, 1 star means, hey, not so good. How many stars would you give this game? How about you?
I'd say 5.
5 stars out of 4? 1 to 4 stars. How many stars would you give?
10.
10 stars out of 4. So 4 stars.
10 stars out of 4.
Wow, that's a great rating.
I'd say 5 too, it's pretty good.
5 out of 4.
It's
So your maximum score, you guys are gonna give it a 5.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
Okay, that's like 3 thumbs up, right?
Yeah.
3 thumbs up.
If,
All right,
if
awesome.
I had 3, yeah.
Yeah.
How would you guys feel if this weekend you could play this game at home?
Yeah!
All right, so anyway, so we would do that quite often, and we just felt like we're getting really good feedback, and folks are really enjoying it. So you keep doing that, you get refinements. You know, I don't know if you guys could see that we had, you know, a glass there, so we could watch what was going on, what people were running into problems with, and you could quickly see somebody run back to their desk and say, oh man, I got to fix that. We got to change that in the next sprint. We got to make this change based on what somebody was doing. So, you know, doing that kind of testing with users directly in our studio, not having somebody else do it, not having a publisher do it or someplace else and just reading the report, but actually having, you know, our players come into the studio was super important to us. And so I made sure we built that playtest room in our studio just for that purpose.
And as Matt mentioned, since most of us had kids to the age where the game was targeted for, there are a couple of times we were able to grab them quickly to test out something or figure out a problem as well. So that was super helpful, being able to have their target audience as part of the Taz family.
Yeah, definitely. Our own kids, you know, could be our worst critics for sure. They'd be pretty harsh about what they liked and what they didn't like or what worked.
Still are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
look,
totally.
We've got Mr. Rich. So our executive producer has joined us as well. Thank you so much. Good morning. Looks like we got you up early.
A little bit. I got out of bed early for this.
Thank you so much. So we've had Optimus Prime, our former art director, talk a lot about the art stuff, and we've had the coordinatrix here, give us a little bit of insight into some of the production issues. She had a picture, I don't know if you saw that. She had the actual picture of when we went live, which was great, 8:38 p.m. on April 15th. So we're just about up to our 10-year. Rich, maybe you've got a couple of funny stories or some insight into how this product came to be from your perspective.
Sure. Put me on the spot right after I wake up.
I'm going to try to find a few more cool things to show.
So I'm trying to remember. I guess the one thing that I really liked about this project is just the team. It just fell together very naturally. We started off. We had a clear vision on the product, which doesn't always happen right away. Really, really early on, and it just started coming together. One of the production philosophies we had was to have something that we could ship, ship and loosely ship, to be able to be complete at all times. Basically, every sprint, every 2 weeks, always having something ready to go. And we could always, by doing that from very early on, we started the user research testing you saw there. Basically 3 weeks into production, and we laid out the schedule for this, and we basically hit it within a week on a 2-year production schedule. The whining you hear in the background is my new puppy Wednesday. So yeah, the hello.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so it said the stream had closed, so
That was mine. That was me closing my video share.
So yeah, it just came together, and every 2 weeks we would meet all together, do an all hands, and we would do product demonstration of what all had gotten done by all of the teams over the previous 2 weeks. And a lot of times people were like blown away at how much stuff got added because everyone separated out into their own teams, and then when they came back, they saw all this stuff was completed, and the product just took big steps forward every 2 weeks. So people were really excited about the game. We had such a talented team. At its peak, we had 92 people working on at Taz, and we were basically focused on this game pretty much the entire time. So I do remember one funny story about the user testing. It was about a designer. I kept telling one of the designers that the brawler level was too hard, and he was like, "No, it isn't. It's fine." Da, 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 da. And I'm like, "I want you to come to the play test tonight and watch them play." And that night we had a group of Girl Scouts, and so we played that level, and we stood outside the observation window and watched for a little bit. And after a while, we left, and he said, yeah, I know. I made the little girl cry. I'll make it easier." so that was pretty funny. I didn't even have to say anything. I said, "Watch."
Do you recall which brawler mission that was?
I honestly don't remember now. It was, it's been long enough that I just don't remember which one it was. He toned it down quite a lot and made it a lot more doable. It really brought it in line with all the others.
I believe there's one with a lizard men in it.
Is that right?
I think
Could
that
be.
was one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show a quick video also of an unreleased character, if you guys don't mind. Let me go back over here. The team did some work on something else that was kind of fun that we never actually got to release for obvious reasons, but let me just show this real quick. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a character you definitely did not get to see.
Oh, I just realized what I'm looking at.
Oh my god.
Was this when Disney bought? Was this after the Disney acquisition and we
That is
considered?
correct. This is after Disney
Yeah.
bought Marvel. And what we thought we would show them is how quickly and easily the team could do something fun for Disney characters.
God, I've forgotten about this.
So you guys here are definitely seeing the world premiere of an unreleased character in Superhero Squad. So thought that would be a little fun sneak peek for you.
You can see in the background of this the old Oscorp. I think somebody in the channel had asked about the old Daily Bugle
Oh,
level. You're getting to see a little bit of it here, of the way it used to work. And that one of the things about Oscorp was that green area was this cool interactive goo. And you could walk through it and it would leave little like trails. It was actually kind of neat.
You really get to see that tilt shift effect though, with this, the way it was too.
Yeah, you can really see it here. The other thing that this particular level had back in this version was the buildings would go transparent when at certain angles, just so that it could not occlude your gameplay. And then underneath them, they had things like little hidden like Easter eggs, like a dinosaur skeleton and UFOs and weird funny things.
That is one thing I'm missing from the fan recreation here that you guys have done is when you go through the building occlusion, seeing those little Easter eggs, because we actually got a lot of people compliment us on that one. Yeah.
So why did this version of the Bugle Zone get Dax?
What was that?
I think it was performance. He was asking why this didn't move forward, like why we changed it. I think that we needed to make a more performant version. I think this one was taxing. It's just the sheer number.
It was, yeah, especially once people were in it. We had too many buildings essentially and so many things to do that it just bogged down.
We could probably do it now with just how things get more powerful. It'd probably be no problem now.
It's a pity you didn't carve that up into 2 different zones.
Yeah, that absolutely right, to save some of those assets.
Yeah, like could have had it like be like an industrial area of like the Daily Bugle instead of like a more residential. Yeah, I think.
Absolutely. Well, Villanville kind of became that a little bit. It was a little more industrial in a sense. So
I have a quick question. If you guys don't mind.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I've seen this poster that I just have kept thinking about ever since I've seen it when I was 8, and there's always been this unreleased character on it that no one seems to have mentioned. It's Whiplash.
Was it the Whiplash that I showed a second ago or earlier? Was it that with that
Yeah,
armor?
I wasn't. Yeah, I think it was reddish and
like
he
a
had green
purplish
hair.
armor. And he had green hair, and it was pulled. The green hair, in fact, was harkening back to the comic book reference of the character. It wasn't. It was. We were trying to figure out our hybrid of following what was the very beginning of the MCU back then, and the comics. And so we would sometimes we'd do direct translations and sometimes not. Why Whiplash didn't? Is your question why it didn't make it in? Because I don't remember the whole history. It might have been just Marvel not approving the character.
Was he supposed to be like some sort of boss battle, or was he supposed to be playable?
Probably a boss, since he was a villain, because we had very few villains in the initial lineup. So it was probably going to be. In fact, that's what was likely, but my memory's fuzzy. It was likely that he was one of the villains that we could have done, and we chose a more iconic villain that was going to resonate a little bit more than Whiplash did.
Right. I was also going to ask about why it took so long for Mysterio to be a boss, because he used to be playable and like you could see him in the card game like 2 years earlier, and he like came out as a boss battle. Was there any reason for that?
Well, I can as on the art side, I love Mysterio. I think he's super cool. He's super classic and a little bit cheesy, but I love his character design too. The big orb for a head, and I always wanted to throw him in different things. So on the art side, I was always looking for ways to put him in, and it might have just been scheduling. Just producer team. Do you guys have any insights about how he ended up being delayed more than other things?
I think he was after I departed, so I don't have any insights for you.
Actually, I think he was added after Gazillion took over for the Amazing Society.
I thought
his mission came out around like late 2013 to early 2014, and he was playable in around 2015, I think.
Okay, so we had built the assets and we had him all set to, because I remember I worked on one of the things that would happen is the way his face would swap was a particular challenge, and I had a strategy for doing that. So I remember developing him, but maybe we'd had him in the canon. It was one of the assets we gave them for them to release whenever they could.
If I remember right, he wasn't ready for launch with the card game, and they wanted to finish all the cards for him. So I think they just held him back because he was on our list for turning in after post-launch, providing challenges to earn villains to play as player characters. So I know he was part of the plan, but I'm pretty sure he was caught up in the non-fully functional and the card game still being a little late post-launch.
Okay, so believe it or not, I just found the character order creation, and Mysterio was number 59 of the heroes.
Okay,
he's down the list.
I remember that list. Yeah.
Yes, we live by that list.
I have a third question. I'm sorry I keep asking so many questions. It's just these are things I've been wondering like ever since, and I never thought I could get the chance to get like reasons why.
No, that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
There was this one Iron Man skin from like a trailer that looked similar to the stealth armor, and like it looked like a combination of the stealth armor and the Arctic armor. What was that supposed to be?
It was so there's a couple I'm thinking of. It might be the one you're thinking of. There was one that was really blue. Is it that one?
Yeah, it's that one. It's one that wasn't in the game.
It literally was a variant of stealth armor. So Iron Man in his history has had different stealth armor visuals. And so when we were thinking about doing a stealth armor, we did this blue one. And I want to say it ended up, there was a few things that we were required to do that ended up being like cool because they were super exclusive, but also not great because not everyone could get access to them. And I think that one came out in one of those, like a Del Monte thing maybe, or something like that. So it didn't, like it was in the game, but not super accessible.
Right.
If anybody else on the team remembers better than I do, I just remember that blue armor with the red eyes, because I think it had red eyes. Like,
yeah, he had like some orangish like things. Like it was more orange. Sort of. I remember a bit of orange being on it.
So the one I think you're talking about is the stealth armor, but there was a couple other obscure Iron Man suits that had come through that I can think of. There was one that was frost armor, which was all blue. And
I think that might be another one that I was thinking of. I'm not sure, but it was in one of the trailers, which is why I'm asking about it, you know?
Yeah, I think there was one that was done for some sort of advertising promotion deal, and I don't remember who it was for.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the one I'm thinking of too, Rich. It had to have been that, right?
Yeah, I believe that there was one done for that. And I think...
Was it for the Topps card game?
Ooh,
no,
what?
No, it was earlier than that.
No.
No, it was some advertising from. I mean, it was like a mainstream advertiser, like you'd see on TV or whatever. And I'm trying to remember who it was for. I can't remember right now.
It's funny how these things work, though. So I want to say that he was cosmetic in the sense that we mostly changed his appearance and didn't do a lot for move sets, power emotes, and that type of thing for him.
That's
but
right.
The way these things always work is that the more obscure a thing is, the more valuable it is, right? So it's like, even though there wasn't much to him, probably he's probably pretty special.
Right. And to comment earlier on the Mysterio thing, it was in production. Mysterio was in production, I recall, but had finished the model, but hadn't finished all the move sets and everything before it moved down to California.
Right.
I'm glad he finally came out, though, because there was a bunch of characters like Mysterio that just belonged in that game so much, and I'm glad he made it.
I have another question. Just can you give me a moment to think about it, because I was a bit interrupted, like someone.
Can I ask a question? So, in the files, we saw that Bishop had voice lines. However, we never saw a model for him. Did that ever happen? Did we ever get animations for him? Or
I still have the concepts somewhere for Bishop. So we did work on the Bishop concepts. I feel like that was right when we were doing that transition. And so I think the model must have gotten finished, but I don't remember.
And also, in the concept art for, I think it was Places, there was Atlantis. Does that mean Namor was also planned to come to the game as well?
Namor, early in the podcast, I talked about there was only one character that we didn't have the license for, and it was Namor. So he wouldn't have been able to be available, but Namorita, I think, actually could have been, and some of the other supporting cast, possible.
Oh, really? Well, okay.
A quick question that just sprung up. Speaking of rights disputes, is that also the reason why stuff from the Sony Spider-Man films, The Amazing Spider-Man, is that why none of those like skins made it to the game?
Yeah, definitely. There was still back then a lot of issues between the Sony license, right, that had like a 50. I think they, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like some sort of 50-year license that Sony had originally signed with Marvel, and so there were some tricky issues that we had to navigate, as Matt remembered there with the Namor one. I had completely forgotten about that. But there were a few other issues like that. And so definitely when it came to some of the rights issues, there were some things with Spider-Man that were a little tricky, but overall we got access to quite a lot. I mean, if you see all the different things, especially one thing I remember that was so cool for us was that we were able to release the Miles Morales version of Spider-Man at the same time that he came out in the comic books. So we added that version. So yeah, if there was ever a particular issue with the Marvel Universe, it definitely was the split with the Sony license. As you've seen, though, Disney's managed to work that out in the modern age.
Yeah, the Namor license went way back because the original creator of Namor owned the license to it. So that pre-existed the Sony thing, but that was one additional thing. Most of it was the Sony Fox deals.
Hey, I want to jump in for a second here. If the doesn't have anything more that they want to show, like share screens, do we want to jump back to the AMA stage?
Sure.
Start going into prepared questions.
That's totally great. Yep, we can jump over there. So just at the bottom of the list, there's a Stages AMA, and we can jump over there. And
So
that
how's that gonna work? You're gonna read the prepared questions, correct? Like
we'll let-
you're gonna answer those.
Yep, we'll try to
Yes,
go through some of those.
And then if we have time after the questions, then we can allow answered questions from the audience if we have time.
Sounds
Okay,
good. I'll
thank
jump
you.
over to the AMA stage.
Is that the questions for the Ask Me Anything? Or for the Masons?
And Crab Foo, if you could add any of the other tasks folks in there. I don't know if you have
Yes,
that.
I'm trying to.
So for all of you folks listening out there, the task folks that have joined have generously given up some of their time today. I want to thank them for that. I want to thank you guys as an audience, not only those of you that are here today, but also that have been there for the project throughout its lifespan. We can't do what we do unless there are fans like yourselves that give us the chance to do that. It was a labor of love for us, and I think that's the only time you can get people to fall in love with your product is if you're in love with it too. So I hope you hear some of the love behind the words. The people here that have managed to give up some of their time today, I appreciate it. And they gave up a lot of their time to build one of the best projects I've ever been involved with, and one of the best teams I've ever been involved with. It's just an amazing, amazing chance. You heard that we had a lot of kids in the studio. I myself had kids in the target age. So one of the main things that we wanted to do with this project was solve what I called the Candyland problem, which is if you've got kids or you grew up, playing games, you probably heard of Candyland. And one of the problems with the Candyland game is that it's not so much of a game. It may be entertaining for the kids that it's targeted for, but as an adult, when you play it with your kids, you're kind of disappointed because there's just not much of a game there. So what we wanted to do with Superhero Squad is definitely get that kind of a Shrek-like effect. The movie Shrek is always seen as a classic because it has so much that's entertaining for anybody of any age. And so we wanted our game to be entertaining for anybody of any age, no matter your skill level. That's why we put a lot of things in there like click to move, as well as WASD and arrow keys, and click to follow. We just wanted, no matter what you did, that you had a way to find fun. So as an adult, as a gamer, as an adult who's not very much of a gamer, maybe you're a lapsed gamer, as a kid, maybe with some experience with games or maybe with no experience with games, we wanted there to be a way for you to get in there and have fun. I really hope we succeeded, and I think because we're 10 years on and we're talking about the game, I think we succeeded to some degree. And so I'm just super proud of the team and super lucky to have been able to work with such a fantastic team, and I'm thankful for all the work that those guys did. So Crab Foo, why don't you take it away and then see if you've got a specific set of questions you want to ask us.
Okay, I'm still trying to add Irritable. I've been inviting to speak and they're not jumping in yet.
Yeah, he might have to click something. I didn't see what you have to do to accept that. Franz, if you're there, if you can hear us, there might be a little thing you need to do to accept the invitation to speak. Right click on yourself, or I don't know. I didn't see what you had to do.
Yeah, for me, I clicked on my icon.
But we can get started while we figure that part out.
Okay, we get to the question list. Start with the general questions then. Were any of you devs aware of the SHSO forum on CBR.com? To me, that was the SHSO Info Hub back in the day.
Yes.
And I used to chat with many other adults there that liked to play SHSO at the time.
We definitely lurked at that site, the CBR forums and stuff like that. And many times, we didn't want to get inundated with too many questions that we may not be able to answer or address or legally be able to talk about. So sometimes we'd hang out on some of those fan sites or information sites and maybe just be lurking. Occasionally, we'd try to use our community folks to reach out to the communities wherever we found them. So it just kind of depended, but we definitely were on that site for sure.
Okay, great. Next question. Is it likely that Disney would ever cease and desist our current project?
Well, I'll jump in there for the team and just say, I can't speak for behalf of Disney in any way, shape, or form. I can say that the Toontown project is probably the best model to look at. If you guys have seen Toontown Forever, or is it called is it Toontown? What is it? Let me take a look. So I would reach out to those guys. They have managed Toontown Rewritten, toontownrewritten.com. So as you guys may know or may not know, there was another MMO that Disney had directly inside the Disney Corporation called Toontown. My kids and I play the heck out of that game. It was a great game. And that came out about 2003 and was closed about 2013. And so Toontown Rewritten is a fan site. And I'm not quite sure exactly what they pulled off there in terms of how they are currently running. But definitely would reach out to to that team if you could.
Yes, I am aware of that. Written, one of the things they seem to do is they're very, take pains to be kid friendly, but also removed, I think, some content from the game that some of the major Disney characters, even if they're just statues in their zones, something which we can't really do with this game because that's the core of the game, but we'll just have to, do what we can.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. I know you Taz developers were not there when gas changed to the fractal currency, but do you feel that was a bad move on gas parts, as it seems they at that point were essentially giving away most of the content for free at that point? I guess that kind of made the game less profitable.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. I'll jump in on some of these more business relationships with the Gazillion headquarters stuff. The Gazillion management team itself went through major shakeups and changes about the same time as we left. So it's very hard to speak for any one particular decision they made after we left. And I don't want to speak poorly of anybody who was trying to keep the project alive and do what they thought might be best. So in many cases, it's a team. First of all, there was a very small team from the dev side that took over for us. As you heard Rich talking about it at our height with contractors and people working at headquarters and everything else, we had a fairly large team. And to shrink that all the way down to a very small team means that they just didn't have a lot of options available to them to really reinvigorate the product or keep it going. And after several years of being in live, we went live in 2011, right? And it lasted until 2017, I think. So it's a pretty good run. So it's hard to understand why or how they approached any of those kind of very significant changes. When we went live, we were looking at a marketplace that accepted both, subscription-based models and free-to-play models. We're really starting. And so we had kind of the challenge of trying to navigate a middle ground there of both enabling subscriptions and trying to enable a free-to-play model. And by the time you get to 2016, 2015, the marketplace had evolved and most things had moved to free-to-play. So we launched in a transitionary period of monetization. And it's also always hard to find an acceptable monetization model for the family market, right? You don't want kids accidentally charging their parents' credit cards $500. At the same time, you want to give them the chance to spend money so that you can keep your product going. So there's a very tightrope path across a lot of chomping crocodiles on either side to get it wrong, and you're over monetizing an audience, and to get it right the other way, you're giving away too much of the product for free. I think it's just a super hard challenge, no matter how you look at it. I don't know how anybody else on the team felt, because a lot of the folks you've got here were very deeply involved in a lot of the monetization, from Irritable Val to Rich and the coordinatrix here. They all were deeply, in some way, touching on the monetization stuff. If you guys want to jump in and talk about that at all, feel free.
Yeah, even though we're 10 years on, one of the things I got to tell you about Squad was that it actually ended up having probably one of the most advanced back-end admin tools. I've worked on some games since that don't even have the comprehensive tools we had back then. And part of it was to balance out the fact that we had 3 audiences, right? We had the kids who are our target audience, we had the Marvel fan adults, and we had the kids' parents. Right, and so we built a pretty robust process for keeping the kids safe. We were, had to go through all the child protection requirements, and a lot of this stuff didn't exist then, so we didn't have a lot of models to follow either. Right, so it was cool building it, and a lot of those things that we did and how well they worked over the course of the years the game ran. To manage the game from the back end, from how we put together sales, to how we bundled items, to how we double checked, parents controlling kids' accounts and all that kind of stuff, are still pretty cutting edge even today. Actually, a lot of that knowledge and what I learned back then goes into a lot of the things that I know into the projects and the admin tools I'm helping build on my new projects.
Oh, say, Irritable is still having problems getting in. He reached out to me. I told him I re-invited him, but still not jumping in. Captain Commander, I gave you moderation stage as well.
Yep, I tried inviting him to speak as well, and doesn't seem to work.
Okay, well, that's a shame. I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, well, I'll move on to the next question.
There was something I had to click that was down near the center. I just don't remember what I had to click on to do that.
Yeah, it's a new feature for Discord, so certainly possible if there's a problem.
Okay, so next question. Did Taz produce anything before they were acquired by Gazillion in 2008? I think you kind of mentioned this earlier this morning, that you were had some things in the works.
Yeah, so just a little bit of history there is that, we formed the company the studio to work on online games for sure. Most of us had worked on some sort of MMO before, and a lot of the team had been together at a previous company called Secret Lair Studios, and which was my first independent studio. So my background is, having come from Microsoft DirectX, and having left to work on other online game sites and things like Playsite.com, Microsoft's Game Zone. And then when we formed Secret Lair Studios, our whole goal was to make an MMO world that we called Infinite Worlds, where we wanted to have a lot of different brands come together. So kind of a squad-like thing where you have the ability to have different parts of the Marvel universe come together. Here, the goal was, really to think of like having a variety of different properties come together. We got purchased by Vivendi, and eventually they shut that studio down when they merged with Blizzard, and they shut just about everything else down. And so we formed the team back up, and the goal was to really get something going with online gaming again, and MMOs. Most of us being huge fans of MMOs, and really brought the team together for that purpose. So we didn't have a commercial product going, but we had a lot of different things that we were looking at doing in the online space, and so it was a really good fit for the Gazillion team to become a part of the Gazillion family, because their whole mantra was, you know, online gaming, and a big part of what Gazillion wanted to do was have family-based games that had, you know, a good sense of value and safety, and a high priority for that. So that was really important to all of us. And as I mentioned, you know, up to about almost 80% of the Amazing Society staff had kids, married with children, as we might say. And so for us, it was just a fantastic opportunity to come along and be able to work on a family-oriented online game at the time.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question. After you stopped working on the game, did you still play it regularly? If yes, do you still have dev privileges or just a normal account?
Oh, great question. Hey, guys, why don't you take that one? Start with Irritable Val, since it looks like we got you on.
I played for a while longer after, but I didn't have dev privileges or anything, so I played as a regular person. I was the Icy Prophet, and no, I enjoyed playing the game. I played it with my kids for a while, for probably about another 6 months after we were off the project, and then it became too time-consuming to play, so I stopped playing around then.
How about you, Matt? Optimus Prime?
Yeah, I played a ton while we were building the game and after. Life just kind of, I actually ended up leaving the area about 5 years ago, so kind of at the time when all this was going on. And I can remember being in Austin, and my kids told me that they'd heard the news that it was sunsetting. And that's when we got back on this, and we all played like crazy as much as we could before it was gone, because yeah, we loved it. Me and both my kids would play a ton.
Rich?
I would jump in, I don't know, every 6 months to a year or so. Just a few times after. It's just as my wife describes it, my way of celebrating the completion of a project is starting two more. So I'm always I'm always busy doing everything. So I often don't get to play games as much as I want, or rather, I play way more than most people, but I just play a little bit. I skim over the surface. So I would check back in occasionally, but I didn't play it significantly after leaving because I was just had so many other things going on.
How about you, Coordinatrix?
Well, cause I didn't play a lot after I departed, because I was very ill when I departed. I had a very severe case of pneumonia and was in the hospital. I did not leave the team or the company by choice. I really wanted to stay, but for health reasons, I had to go. So I didn't play a lot because I had to focus on getting better. I think Jason will probably remember visiting me in the hospital. He had to wear isolation garb because I was in isolation at the time.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a really hard thing to leave, because I was told by my doctor, well, either you stop you or I stop you, and I'm like, okay. So I put in my 2 weeks notice. So it was right around the time of all the shifts too, which I think as a producer, once you're part of the producer's team, you're always part of the team. And so, seeing these folks on and just remembering all the things we did together and what we accomplished, but I go back regularly and look at, things that we did. I use a lot of the tools from back then too, from running the project and organizing things. I also teach at DigiPen Game College here. I teach the production and agile classes. So I took some time off this year. And so I use a lot of kind of examples and things that we did at TAS, because building that game together and playing that game together was so much fun. And I think that was part of the fun for me, was when we had studio play days where we all tried to get in and found some really crazy issues. It was pretty awesome.
So for myself, I definitely played a lot like what some of the other folks were saying. Played like crazy for the first 6 months or so. Always went back, taking a look at the community and everything else. I believe that they left my dev account on for several months, and I was wondering at what point they would turn it off, but at some point it got turned off, but I did have it for a little while. And my kids, one of the fun things was one of my youngest sons, he loved going in on my account while the game was live, and sometimes he'd show up in the game world with a character we hadn't released yet. So some of you may remember we had the Monkey King as a character. Again, we were really trying to look at the Asian market and try to emphasize some of the characters we could do there. And so he was running around in the live server with my dev account one time and switched over to the Monkey King. And that just caused a huge sensation. Everybody chasing him all around the Baxter, and he'd run from zone to zone, just having this whole trail of people following him, asking him, what in the world's going on with that, right? And so that was a lot of fun. Finding bugs even after you've released the product, right? You're looking for the glitches, and some of those glitches were fun that I didn't want people to fix because the community was having so much fun with them. Things like doing your power emotes in the air was a thing for a while, and so people figured out a little bit of a glitch where you could smash the ground with Iron Man and create sort of a bridge for yourself off the top of one of the buildings, things like that. So that was a lot of fun. I don't know if Rich, are you willing to reveal like how great your life was by how you found true love? I think that's some of the fun stories behind the scenes.
Oh, sure. So I think I was either the first or the second full-time employee after I got recruited to be the executive producer at startup, basically, and we built the team from there. And we were together, I think, about 2-3 months when Secret Lair was shutting down, and we were ramping up. And so we hired a bunch of people from Secret Lair to kind of literally kind of come down the street and rejoin Jason and the rest of the team. And I think Matt was part of that, if I recall correctly. But one of the people that came over was Kelly Wright, who was the office manager over there. And so we'd shared an office together when she first came over. And I think it was about 1.5 years later that we started dating. And then about 1 year after that, before anyone knew we were dating. And then we were together for 3 years before we got married. And we've been together 8 years since. Well, technically 8 years, 1 month, and 11 days, but who's counting?
So I can say, I put those two in an office together, and love was the result. So just had a great crew, and so some of those behind the scenes things are just the fun stuff. You always talk. A lot of game companies will put in the credits, things like babies that were born during the production and stuff like that. So we just had a great crew. I was looking for, I have somewhere some of the pictures from some of our parties. We had a great Halloween party during development over at my house. We had all the kids over and just had some crazy games for everybody to play and thing like that. So it was a really, really great squad of people at the studio.
Okay, this wasn't part of the last written question, but I want to add this, just thought of it, as it kind of ties into the question. If you remember, what was your in-game username?
Mine was King Ferret, I think, which was fine. My original one when we were developing was Ghost, which I thought was super cool. I just really loved it, and because I could slip in and be a ghost as a developer. But King Ferret was the one that I actually had most.
I don't remember.
I had
Mine was
so
the
many.
Icy Puppet. I was the Icy Prophet, but I think I actually had the first name used because I was the one that started the character name generator.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even remember mine because doing both the UI and the platform, I had to test a lot of them, so I was always changing names and messing with stuff. So I don't even remember.
I do remember when we were putting together the list of different words that you could use. A woman beater was one that was removed.
Right, because we put an exception list on some combinations.
Yeah, I remember working on that. That was exception. That was a cool project though, Franz, that name generator. It had a couple iterations, but it was a really, really cool result.
Yeah, we had a much more elaborate one that we had planned, just didn't get to do it, and that was to allow some more editing and stuff for the player, and also showing which ones were more popular and which ones weren't. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I think it's some of the things that we ended up doing that became actually games within themselves was playing with the name generator. Right? Should I grab this one right now, or should I roll for another, a better one? And so this is a good question kind of to the audience, and maybe we can talk about it later, but was the one of the fun partnerships doing the UI was what we called the error hero, the little red guy who shows up with a lot of the error messages. We couldn't believe we got Marvel to actually agree to adding him to the game, but the kids started doing the same kind of thing. They tried to find every error so they could see all the different versions of the error hero in the game.
Cool. I did not know that character had a name, the Error Hero. Okay, let's see. Next question. How long did it typically take to develop a new character?
Boy, we really got that down. Actually, so Kristen explained to me what there's a production type. So we use this thing called Agile, which allows you to sort of flex with the ebb and flow of game development. But she taught me about this thing that I still try to use now, which is called a Kanban. And it really takes all the different pieces of a known quantity and it breaks it down into the repeatable parts. And then you can just slide it from one to the next. And I want to say, God, Kristen, do you remember the exact amount of how long it took us to get a character from end to end? It was like 2 weeks. It was real small. It was pretty fast.
Yeah, it ended up being that we could do, once we agreed on what characters were next priority, I think that was usually the bigger challenge was everybody had their favorites and trying to get you on the priority list. I think it was 2 weeks. I think we could actually do a character from concept to at least first playable in the game in about one sprint, which is about 2 weeks long.
I think it was actually 2 sprints. It was one
with the
sprint
polish
to get
and all the other pieces.
Yeah, it was one sprint to get it through the social space, and then another sprint for all the brawler moves and everything.
Yeah.
Right, and the power emotes.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, so a month, 30 days approximately. And then of course we set and to do all the sounds and eventually the voiceovers and all that kind of stuff too that would come. But
yeah, I think that tracks because as a player, I started in 2012. I remember at that time you occasionally came out with 2 new characters a month, so that adds up. Okay, next question. How much percentage of players had a Shield membership? Were there any big spikes or lows in players or money spent by the players?
I can address a little bit of that, which is to say that our spikes definitely were seasonal and also advertising related. We could definitely track that the way that Gazillion spent advertising money was allocated like per month. And a lot of times what we were tracking, that we would see that they'd spend the money right up front in the first week of the month, and we would get a huge spike of players from that. I would say, don't hold me to any percentages, but roughly speaking, we'd get about half of our traffic from advertising and half from, say, search, native search for Superhero Squad or Superhero Squad Online or online games or Marvel games, some sort of search that led them to us. And then another half of our bucket was coming from the advertising money. And so you could actually watch the traffic drop back down after the money for that month had been spent in advertising. We'd still always get a good base of folks coming in by word of mouth and search and everything else, but we could definitely see the impact of the advertising. Anybody else have stuff they remember from that?
I still remember the negative impact of that advertising when they were doing some on Disney XD, and it showed us that our registration system wasn't able to handle the traffic. So we had a week to fix it before the next ad run ran. Yeah, you could totally, I mean, we would watch, when we were fixing things too, we would watch the traffic coming in because we knew what the schedule was for the ads to show on Disney XD at the time. And you just watch, as soon as you knew that the commercial had run, you just watch registration start to like go crazy, right? It was a fun thing to be able to see the direct result of the advertising. And back then we didn't have the cool toys and tools that we have now for tracking new cohorts and which advertisers or which advertisement timelines resulted in players staying, which would have been a really cool thing to be able to do. But you could definitely see the impact of that advertising. And every week we actually ran through how the heroes were selling, right? So we did a weekly review with finance to figure out what character bundles were going to come together, which ones we were going to put on sale, which ones weren't selling. So we regularly did all that kind of analysis behind the scenes as a team.
That was one of the biggest motivators for us to add the challenge system, was to get people to look at other heroes besides the ones that we had initially when you launched all the free ones. And we added challenges that tried to expose more of the heroes that people weren't using.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're aware, but sometime after Gaz took over, they replaced the challenges with achievements. And so a lot of those characters that you used to have to earn through the challenges, actually, not too many of them made it to the achievements. At that point, they just became purchasable with fractals. So at some point in bringing this game back, I want to switch. We want to have the achievements, but I also want to have the challenges come back and make you have to earn those heroes. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that on the site earlier, that one of the big things that I had really wanted to do and we had mapped out was the future edition of villains to be playable. And the original decision was that we didn't want them to be easy to get or kind of like just purchasable and not have any kind of like work for it. And so we wanted people to feel like they got something special. And even though Marvel was a bit concerned about, you as a villain playing against you as a villain in a brawler or whatever, they eventually thought it was okay. And we had done some preliminary work to get all that in there. With it, we even had a new UI mocked up for the villains, but that was when we finally were disassociated with the game. But I always felt like it's not fun. It's like when people say I don't like rules in our games, except I want rules. I want to have things to choose to achieve, and so that was kind of what we thought the villains would actually provide for us as a core thing, was you got the villains because you did something, not just because you bought them.
Yes, I agree. That was a great approach, and we want, if we ever get to the point where we add new content, we want to continue down that path more.
The only thing I can tell about that was that the UI was a little painful for us to do. It wasn't all streamlined, so there's a lot of hand making for the UI for each of those kinds of things. It was worth it in the end. I think it looked really cool and it was fun, but just from a development point of view, it was a lot of intense work.
Okay, this next question. Do you remember the date you last worked on the game, and if so, what did it involve?
Oh gosh.
I think for me it was all on the business side. I'll just say, I moved over to mainly trying to get deals to bring Squad over to other countries. So I was involved in helping it get over to Germany. Yeah, we did a whole thing where we took it over to China, and there was a lot of deals we were trying to make to get it into China, Korea, Japan, that kind of thing. So most of the last things that I was involved with was all trying to get more countries to be involved with Squad.
I think mine was preparing for the handoff to Gazillion. I still have the folder of all the things that I put together to hand off for how we build the game.
Mine was a little bit different in that I handed everything off to Kristen about, what is it, 4 months, 6 months maybe?
Yeah, about 6 months. Yeah.
I think it was 6 months, where we were starting up prototyping on a new game. And so Kristen was promoted to the executive producer over everything. And I handed everything over to her while I started ramping up a new game. So I think but I was still there. So it's not like I was gone from all of the Superhero Squad stuff. So I don't remember a specific thing. It was just the end of one sprint. It's like, okay, everybody go to Kristen now. And then Kristen and I would still talk about stuff, but mostly it was her show at that point.
For me, it wasn't a single asset, but there were so many things that were. That's why, I think it's my sharing of you guys what I thought was done or not done was inconsistent, because in the end, I just wanted to wrap as many of those different pieces up and hand them off to the team that was going to keep moving on things, so they'd have a chance to live in the game. So it was that I just remember this mad flurry of try to all the little dreams that were in progress to make sure that they landed somewhere safely, hopefully.
Okay, I just found mine. It was July 10th, 2012. That was with the last big thing that I did. And that was handing off all the stuff to Gazillion as we were starting to transition out.
The last thing I worked on that I can really remember was getting villains as collectible characters and the challenge system behind it. Wrote that all up before we closed it off.
Okay, thanks. Those are all very interesting answers. I want to take a pause for a second to ask, because we are approaching a 2-hour mark since we started. We didn't really specify ahead of time how long this would last. We still have a lot of questions to go through, and I imagine there's also a lot of people that want to ask questions that aren't on the list. So first, let me ask, how much time do you folks want to spend on this today?
Great question. I myself can spend a little bit more time, but I'm just wanting to make sure the rest of the folks on the team feel free to let us know to drop off or whatever whenever you need to. And I'd also like to make sure maybe instead of going through all of the prepared questions, we switch over to ask some of the folks who are here online today to make a chance to open it up to the folks that are actually here as well.
So you other Taz team, how much time do you have left? Maybe a little more time?
Yeah.
I'm flexible.
I can stick around too for a bit.
Yeah, I can stick around for a little while longer, but yeah, I'm probably going to have to run here pretty soon.
Same here.
Okay, so at this point, I think we should probably then, because there's so many prepared questions that are still left to ask, maybe we'll just jump into letting the audience jump in with questions. And I don't know, I'm going to throw this out there. If you guys ever want to come back and answer more questions from the prepared list, like a month down the road or whenever you have time, you're always welcome back. So I'm just throwing that out there.
No, and thank you, and thank again. Thanks to all the fans who've joined you here on this site. And thanks for all your hard work, Crab Foo. You've done an amazing amount of work putting this back together, and all of us. If you haven't tried it yet, Taz folks, it's pretty amazing to see it up and running with the work that Crab Foo and the others on the team here have put into it. The card game's not there yet, and the headquarters isn't there yet. But they're still pretty fun to kind of just run around in the social spaces. And believe it or not, it was super useful because I was trying to explain to some new folks that had never played it what the game was, and just watching YouTube isn't enough. So being able to kind of jump into it last week and actually show it off to some other new developers was super useful. So we spent Thursday, I think, playing through your version to get an idea of what Superhero Squad used to be and what you guys have accomplished. So thank you so much.
Teaching tool.
Yeah, just as a side note, our first sprint was longer than normal. We did 3 or 4 week sprint, and what eventually became the Baxter Building area was the first thing that was added to the game, was the social space. About 3-4 weeks into development, we had a rough prototype. It was very rough compared to what it was polished, but that was effectively the focus of our first 4-month release, was getting the social space in.
Believe it or not, we actually had, I have got a video of that sprint review, Rich, but I can't find it. And I know I have it somewhere on one of my hard drives. And so I've been searching all weekend trying to find it for everybody because I thought that would be pretty fun to show. But we had a basic prototype of the card game. Again, thanks to Devin and the team there. We got that up and running. It didn't look anything like a card game, but it was playable. And then we had the headquarters. Again, thanks to Franz, we had this ball rolling down a ramp that you could interact with, and the physics worked. We had a basic of the brawler and how we wanted to do the occlusion. And like I said, Matt and the art team had put together some of the stuff you saw there with where we're going to take the art direction. So we actually got a lot of the stuff up and running, thanks to Unity being as easy to use as it was back then, compared to still all of its problems, but there was still a lot of stuff that it let us do so quickly. I'm still looking for that, and Crab and the rest of you folks, if I can come back once I find some of those other videos, I'm happy to share some of them.
I have the old storyboard from that release.
So I'm gonna have to gather you guys up after this and get some more stuff, and maybe we'll put up our own fan site, some of our stuff.
Yeah, I was just looking through to see how accurate you guys were and what your recollections was. It was login, then going to the world map, the very big one that we originally planned, the social space, selecting a theme for your headquarters. Franz will remember this. Hey, Franz, Team Frodo. That was our Agile Scrum team's name for the UI. Going to the Brawler level 1, and then Brawler level 2, back your headquarters, and then a squad duel in the card battle. So that was our very first release, was all of that.
Internal release, what you mean?
Yeah, internal release, yep.
Yeah.
And if you guys never get around to making your own fan website, we do have an official website for our revival project here. We would love to have some of those materials to post there, so maybe we can hash that out at a later time.
That sounds great. I think we've got a couple of people with requesting to speak. Quasi was the first one, I think, to raise their hand.
I've invited Quasi. Quasi, you want to jump in and ask your question?
I'm sorry, I've been talking to the air for the past like 2 minutes. So I was interested in knowing what your guys' mentality was behind the pricing of the characters, especially Spider-Man, who used to be literally unobtainable.
Yeah, that's
Was
a
that
good
like
question.
was a smart decision to like get kids to like fork over for Spidey? I used to want him so bad.
That was partly there was so many people involved in those discussions. There was our ideas as a development team. There was the publishing team, which had responsibilities for some of the marketing and business decisions. There was Disney and Marvel, right? So there's really four or more parties. I told you our philosophy, generally speaking, was to walk a tightrope between monetization and being fair, and trying not to overdo it. It's a very tough challenge. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I can add something to that. I remember the discussion was, we were of two minds. One is like everybody wants Spider-Man, so give everyone Spider-Man, right? Just it's free and it's available. But the other concern was that then it wouldn't be Superhero Squad online, it would be Spider-Man online because everybody would be playing Spider-Man. So I think that what we were trying to do was find a price point that would make Spider-Man common and accessible, but not too common. And part of that we wanted to do through multiple variants of Spider-Man, as I recall, too.
Yeah, I remember Spider-Man being the character with the most skins. I believe he had like 14 skins by the end of the game.
Right, exactly. And that was part of that trade-off, was to make it feel like it's not just the same character all over the place.
And not just skins, right? But also variants to moves and power motes and things like that. So we definitely wanted the characters to not just be simple skins. And we had a great character team, by the way. They're not here today. Tried to reach out to see if I could track them down and get them on, but we had such an amazing character team. Obviously, I'm happy with just about every part of the project, but definitely want to shout out to John and Donovan. You guys are out there and did some amazing work at getting some very, very cool skins in the game. And so that was one of the tough challenges: how to make Spider-Man accessible yet collectible yet balanced. Yeah, it's a tough balance to walk.
Yeah, I mean, Spider-Man is like, I believe, like one of the easiest characters to like have multiple reskins of, because like his like his comics costumes never really like deviate from just the same model. Like it's usually just the same model, right? So I think it is pretty like easy to like design
Iron
it at least.
Spider was
Iron
different.
Spider was the one I was thinking of, right?
And so the Earth Spider-Man's different. Big Time Spider-Man's different. There's some
Yeah,
that
I
are
know.
just
There are a lot of different ones, but like Spider-Man is one of the more forgiving characters.
Yeah.
When it comes to that.
I think one of the cool things that the team did is, and I mentioned this previously in a different chat, but I really think, and I think Matt alluded to that, Optimus Prime, getting the team together, and we had jokes or things that we'd sit in spend hours talking about each and every character and each and every skin, about how we could bring that to life, to really drive home what this character was about or what the story behind the scene was, to such a broad audience just through emotes, like just the fact of pulling out an old 1960s camera, for one of his emotes, I think was just a fantastic touch, right? And each one of those costumes changing some of the emotes that went with them, or some of the items in the headquarters or whatever, to try to reflect something about the nature of the character of that hero. Somebody asked me one time, what's the difference between DC and Marvel, and one of the guys at Marvel helped kind of clarify it for me. Was he said, we try to make Marvel heroes try to be more, have some sort of an everyday person to them in some way, shape, or form, right? They have to pay the bills, right? They have to pay the rent. They have, Peter Parker has trouble paying the rent, right? Even though he's Spider-Man. Superman, you don't really ever think of having a problem paying the rent. And so bringing Peter Parker to life behind the skin in some way through the emotes was also a big
I-
challenge. I thought the team did a great job doing that.
I think the way that TQ described it was that Marvel tries to make men out of gods, and DC tries to make gods out of men.
Yep, that was the phrase. Thank you. Cool. Should we move on? Thank you, Quasi. Hope that helped.
Yeah.
Maybe up to Harold.
Sorry, I muted him a little early. I didn't realize he was going to respond. I'm going to invite Harold now to speak.
Hello.
Hi, Harold.
Hi. I think if I told 10-year-old me that he'd be talking to the devs of his favorite game, he'd lose his mind. But I'll try to keep it together. This is really cool, by the way. It's like this is pretty amazing. But
If you don't mind, giving us a picture snapshot. So you were about 10 when you played the game for the first time, roughly.
I can't. I would have been 9 or 10. Yeah, because my friend introduced me to it in year 4 of that's British school. So yeah, no, I would have been 9 actually, which would have been 20. How old would I have been? Oh, 2012. It would have been 2012.
And which country you're from? Because I detect a bit of an accent from.
Yeah, I'm from
we have an accent
England.
too, I'm sure, but.
I'm from England. Which there was some guys talking in the chat earlier about how it wasn't a very big game in the United Kingdom. But yeah, I don't think there wasn't much advertising for it over here. But it was just like at my school, it was just me, my brother, and this one friend that played it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I joined to ask a question. The question I wanted to ask was, were any of the Taz team fans of Marvel before you started the project?
Yeah, it's definitely. I wish I could show you
Most of them.
My collection. I go back to Cap. I'm a big Cap fan, and I showed before. I guess I can't share my camera in this, but I showed before. The team got me for Christmas a real legitimate Captain America shield. Don't know if it's truly made out of vibranium, but everybody signed it on the back with their tasks, their names. Probably one of the best gifts I've got. It's still up on my shelf here, and I've got it right here. If I could show you.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I'm a Cap guy going back to way back, and I've got like some Cap comics from that are 10 cents on the cover.
Oh, I love that.
Bucky and Cap, the original Bucky. I'm super happy with what Marvel did with Cap for the movies. I love the World War II origin way that they handled it, the way that they did the suit, and everything about the first Cap movie was real trepidatious. And thank you, Marvel, for all that you did for treating Cap with respect, and creating a great version in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I'm a huge fan, and I want to shout out to my partner Jay, who looks like he couldn't make it today. But he's a bigger fan than I am, and he built up probably one of the better comic collections for us as a studio. We had this just huge library of just about everything you could think of in the Marvel universe. We spent a lot of money on buying a lot of comics for the team.
Yeah.
So that if you were a fan but didn't have access to it, or weren't a fan, you could just borrow just a ton of different stuff out of our Amazing Society Marvel library.
That's super cool. I guess that would be a good reference for like art stuff. I guess Matt would have worked on that. I assume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. In fact, one of the cool artifacts we had, Harold, was there's and you can still buy this. It's a little more rare now, but they actually did really great costume. It's like a omnibus of all the different heroes and villains, and they're standing in a T-pose. And this is back in the Silver Age, so you can get them all really clearly, their costumes and everything, and then it puts their description. And actually, to be honest, that's the stuff I read when I was a kid. Like, I loved the stories, don't get me wrong, but I kind of just wanted to see how it all fit together. And it was like the crib notes of the Marvel universe, right? And so I used to read that thing, and so we had copies of that, which was really very helpful.
That's super cool.
I think I was a little unusual, and I was always a fan of comics, and I remember reading the Simonson run of Thor and all of that. But really, I was more of a DC fan than I was. I think still my favorite heroes are DC. And I remember joking with a friend of mine that I used to work with, where he was more of a Marvel fan than DC, but he was the executive producer for DC Universe. And a convention say, "You have the coolest job." No, you have the coolest job.
I was always a Marvel kid, but I think that's just because my dad was. But anyway,
But I learned
thanks for
way
answering
more.
my question.
Yeah, I
Oh,
learned
sorry,
way more
didn't mean to
about the
cut you off.
Marvel universe, obviously, through the process of working on it. So
Yeah, of course. I'd imagine, yeah, you'd have to, I guess.
I guess I could add one other thing that's just kind of timely. I've been doing some old like clean out of all this old attic stuff, and I came across like artwork from when I was a kid, and there's a lot of Marvel artwork that I drew when I was little, and trying to like mashups of like characters. Like I had Archangel. I found a drawing where I had done Archangel with the paws of Wolverine and Cyclops' visor. So
That's cool.
yeah, always loved
I,
this.
I used to draw loads of stuff like that. It's funny that you did as well.
It's just something inside our hearts that makes you want to kind of put it all together, right?
Yeah, I love that. It's so cool that all you guys still have those files, like those videos and that artwork. It's so cool that wasn't like lost after all this time.
Yeah, and like everyone was saying, maybe it'd be a good idea to get it out there to folks so that they can, can be in the world.
Yeah, it's cool what Crab Foo said about putting it on the website. That would be really cool. But I just think it's amazing that this like artwork that you worked on like however many years and years ago just sort of just sat there and was never released, and all because of this event you managed to show it to all of us. It's so cool.
Yeah, and feels great too. All that stuff, you look at it and you're like, well, and there's, by the way, as a artist in the game industry, there's mountains of artwork that I have that are like beautiful, amazing full games that audiences will never see. So yeah, anytime I get a chance to do something like this, I'm so excited.
It's a cool thought. I always think about stuff like that, like artists for games that just haven't, so much like lost concept art that might have never made it into the project and stuff like that, that only the artist will have access to. It's something I think about a lot. It's a cool like idea.
Yeah, and there's a lot.
Yeah, of course, I can imagine.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you again, Harold. Thank you for your fandom. Thank you for your appreciation, and I'm so glad that we made a game that you could play with your friends and your brother.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's exactly what we wanted. We wanted to make
Thank
a game you play with your friends, play with your family, maybe play with your mom and dad.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
So appreciate it. And let's, in the interest of time, I don't want to cut you off, but let's move over to Dardan or Mole Man.
Dardan, you have been invited.
Might be good if I unmute myself.
You could do a quick intro, just a little bit, what country you're from, or when you started playing Squad.
Yeah, I want to say I started playing around 2014, 2015. I knew I was in high school, and I was born in 1999, so I'm like my age is at the time of the year. But I don't remember how exactly I found out about it, but I remember finding out about it and playing. I think there were even sometimes I played on a laptop trying to hide it from my parents, just in case they didn't want me to play it. But I'm very much I kind of agree with what Harold said, where if I'd have known that I would be talking with the actual dubs, I'd be freaked out of my mind. What makes today great is that I woke up, I didn't even know this was happening, and then all of a sudden, like, I get distracted and I check on it and something's going on. So I did have a couple questions. So did any of you guys really have a big like work on anything of the physical part of the card game, like turning it into a physical edition?
Yeah, we definitely did. We have one person on the team definitely who can take a lot of credit for that as well. Lurking as well. So, but I do want to give a shout out to the card game team themselves. We set out with that kind of a goal, is that we wanted to see if we could make a game that would be just as fun to play physically as digitally. I think there's a few things that we kind of discovered in making the card game. And we went out and met directly with the Upper Deck folks, who were great to put together the physical version of the card game. I think there's probably several behind the scenes stories that we could get out of Devin and the team there, but that I might not even know myself. But Rich, did you had something to add on that one?
Yeah, I mean, when we built the card game, I mean, we built it with a plan to do physical in mind. So like all of the art commissioned, we did just the same as you would for a trading card game. I worked for Wizards of the Coast back from 1995 to 1997, so I had a lot of contacts there, and we actually had Sandra Everingham, who was one of the original Magic the Gathering artists at the time. She was a freelance art coordinator, and so we hired her to work with all of the artists and get all of the card art. So we were doing everything like you would do for a physical card game, and then rendering the final cards. And we hired Loan Shark, which is Mike Selinker's company, to come in and do a lot of the flavor text on all the cards. And his background, he has a long background with Marvel. He did the Marvel role-playing game with Wizards, and so he had all of them. He's a huge Marvel nerd, so he knew all of that stuff. So that team put that together. So we really kind of planned it, even though it was a digital game, so that it was fully compatible and ready to go as a physical card game. And then the actual production of the card game was handled by, was it Upper Deck, I think, that did it?
Yep.
So in terms of our production, we didn't actually run actually printing the cards, but we certainly provided all of the art and all of the card art for that.
Yeah, and Devin and the team there gave a lot of thought to that up front. We had a couple of different designs we experimented with, and eventually it was Devin's design that we went with for the balance of the luck factor versus the card versus the deck design. I think, if I can remember right and speak on his behalf and the team's behalf, it was a goal here was that not only could you just pick up and play, which I think it worked out pretty well, but we wanted it to make sure that a really, 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 really good deck designer player still could get defeated by a fairly new player with a little bit of luck. So we wanted to make sure that there was a good balance there between those sides, but yet you'd still feel like there was a good reason to design a deck a certain way or use certain colors and things like that. So I personally think that the game came out great. We did a initial preview of the game at PAX, at Penny Arcade Expo, and that was pretty cool.
That was with real cards too.
That was, yeah, with the physical cards. So there are packs floating out there, and I have some from the Penny Arcade version. There were some errors and printing errors and stuff like that, but we printed up some of them ourselves and gave them away at Penny Arcade Expo to preview the card game, and that was a lot of fun. So the Loan Shark guys were just great to work with. They were a big help. A lot of the team ended up, having some experience in some way, shape, or form tied to Wizards of the Coast and Magic and other card games and that kind of thing. And Devin, I think, went on to design another board game based on Marvel called Legendary, which is a great game. If you guys haven't tried that one, give that a try. What was that?
That it is a wonderful game.
Yep. So Devin's just a really great designer.
Yeah, Devin and Nick Davidson, who was the lead designer for the overall project both came from Wizards, so we had a strong background in trading card game stuff among our design team.
And can I give you guys a hint? If you love the card game, there is an unreleased card that I'm just so devastated we didn't get to release with art from Penny Arcade. So there's a secret card out there. Didn't get in. I've got the physical cards of it, but didn't get to put that out there of the actual Penny Arcade style art for our CCG, which was fun to commission and get from them. They were big supporters of us. We as a team, a lot of us had worked on Carcassonne for Xbox 360, and started kind of making friends with those guys over there because of that. And so then when we did the CCG, we gave them a call and said, hey, we'd really love to have you guys do one of the cards. So having the connections into WotC let us get some great artists, including lots of people on the team themselves created art for it. And we didn't want to do, one of the big debates was, couldn't we just do snapshots from the game? And you know, Devin and others on the team, I think, argued really well and appropriately that, you know, hey, this is the way to have a very distinguishing set of cards that are collectible, and everything else is that, you know, they're original art. So that was a good chunk of money to make original art for that, but it was well worth it.
Speaking of the devs who contributed original artworks for it, there was like a large group of us. There was John Schroeds. If you see a card with his name on it, he was the character designer. You just can find some Matthew Bells in there. I think I did like 3 or 4. Gosh, yeah, there's a number of us that all like created our own original. I think Rob Johnson, he's another character designer and environment artist that made some art for these. So there's a bunch of us that had cards in there. You can find us in there if you have the physical ones.
Yep. So there's, you know, famous artists from, say, the Magic the Gathering space. There's other good original artists we were able to find, artists from the team, and then you know, just a lot of love went into that card game. I still show it off to a lot of folks. I still play the physical, pull out the physical cards and play the card game. I still really like it.
Need to get a collection of it. I've been wanting to. One other just really quick question. I don't even know if any of you guys would know about this, but were you guys kind of the originals of having a Spider-Man in games that was low cost? Because I've seen that like take effect in a lot of other games, but I feel like it might have been started with you.
Maybe we were one of the first to do a more easily accessible Spider-Man.
Easy, so like the Spider-Man cards themselves were low cost, like to play.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember one of the things that I mean, Marvel Universe is interesting in that it's divided into multi-power tiers. There's what are called the street level heroes versus all the way up to the cosmic heroes. And I remember that factoring in, but I don't remember the details of how. So Spider-Man being one of the more lower level heroes, not pure street level, is one level up. There's 4 tiers, as I recall. As a result,
they were all divided into the tiers, and I think that was more lore based than it was. We knew what, like Devin had already chosen how to use the tiers, but exactly the criteria that got them into the tiers, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Devin would be the one to ask on that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you again. Thank you for playing the game and being a fan. It's a great honor to be able to meet with you guys and chat and share some stories and maybe hopefully give you some insight onto how and why we did things. I think next we've got Mole Man.
Hi.
Hello. Quick intro from you. Which country or you know when you got started playing?
US. Yeah, I'm a bit more in the American. I started playing the game around 4th grade.
Awesome.
For quite a while, even before that, I was a huge fan of the franchise, the show, and the toys. And in the show, I actually was more interested in the villains. And one of my favorite members of Doomsley's Legion was actually Toad. So I wanted to know if Toad was ever considered to become a playable character or a boss in the game.
I'd start from the generic and say, everything from the show was something we watched. By Odin's Rainbow Pony. We tried to incorporate kind of as many, nods and things from the show, including Mr. Mayor. So got to go meet Stan Lee to record his voice because he did the mayor, if you guys remember from the cartoon. So pretty much everything that was in that show, we definitely wanted to consider. I'm trying to think of, and playable villains was definitely a big debate. So there's a whole, background to that. But trying to get them in as actual villains. Can any of you guys remember Toad specifically?
I remember looking at his, we had the character designs from the show, and we had him in the queue, but there's just so many to make that I think, like Christian's sheet before, he was pretty low on the list of which ones.
He was not in the first 100.
Yeah, but we did look at his work. I remember looking at the designs.
I do remember Marvel kind of having interest in making sure that the most visible characters were ones that, like, they didn't want to use Tiger Man, if any of you know who he was. So it did kind of put a little bit of pressure on trying to make more marketable characters that it didn't get lost. And I don't think Toad was as high up as so many of the others were.
In fact, if you the criteria was kind of like this. It was heroes, and then heroes that were well known, and then there's all these villains we wanted to get to, but we didn't have a lot of playable villains, and we only had a few boss encounters. So that was like a really it was a luxury to get one of the villains to come through. And then later on, when we finally, as you guys saw, finally passed over the torch and got the more villains being playable, that was kind of change. And so Mole Man could have happened, like it just kind of got a little too late in the day.
Also, I recall, I was just going to add, also I recall that because we were in parallel development with the show, that there was some adaptation of the list, of priority list, as the show went on while we were working on it.
I think that's right. I think that's true.
But so a quick add-on to my first question: were there any characters you guys wanted to have in the game that didn't make the final cut?
Yeah, definitely.
All of them.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to do some very fan service kind of stuff, pick out some things. And I think going to the Comic-Cons and interacting with the fans that way, also, a lot of the team got a chance to travel to, say, San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con. When we did Emerald City Comic-Con here in Seattle, we got a chance to interact with a broader base of fans, or say at Penny Arcade Expo. And so we'd get a lot of feedback from fans about a favorite character, favorite villain, or favorite setting. And, on the team, we had a lot of favorites too. And so there's just only, in the end of the day, you only have so many people and you only have so much time and you got to make a decision. And then Marvel might tell you, no, like, I think we originally said we wanted to have playable villains from the start. And I think that was a Marvel decision up front that they eventually changed their mind on, if I remember right.
Yeah, and we certainly had things that did make it in, like Squirrel Girl.
Yep, that was surprising how many people asked for Squirrel Girl at the Comic-Con.
Yeah, and I remember also. What's that?
Beta Ray Bill was another one that everyone seemed to ask for.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The Simonson Run of Thor. That was one of my favorites. So.
I think Squirrel Girl was also Michelle's favorite.
Which one?
I was always asking Michelle.
Uh-huh.
Used to ask QA Michelle used to ask for Squirgle all the time.
Oh yeah, great.
Everybody kind of had their characters that they the more obscure ones that they fought for, right? And tried to make sure that we didn't forget about them. So, I mean, maybe somebody had asked about how connected we were for Marvel. I knew almost nothing. I learned a ton. But I remember a lot of folks had their favorites that were obscure who they would always ask, where are they on the list? They're not yet.
Well, and I remember TQ would say, hey, it would be a good idea if you did thus and such character. He couldn't really say anything about what was upcoming in the movies, but we did get some hints of maybe we might think about this particular thing or another. So I think that influenced Liz because he wasn't allowed to talk about it, but it gave us some ideas of what might be important.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your question, Moman Man.
Well, we're up. You're welcome.
Okay, it looks like the other folks dropped off the list. Oh, no, we've got Woblin Queen. I think you're up.
We can't hear you, Queen. Whoops, she dropped off.
Might have a technical issue there.
Any other questions? Soccer Spidey.
Hello. My question was there ever a plan to translate the voice files into other languages?
Well, we did do, Kristen, you might remember some of this. This was in our localization work. We did localize quite a bit of the game UI. And I want to say that the audio files were too expensive for at least that first pack. And they were, maybe down the road, but I think no is the answer.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. Because if I remember correctly, our first language was German. Is that right?
I think it was.
So I was doing live production stuff, so I was like kind of in a different mindset at that point. But I think we did Germany first, and we had a list of languages, and we built the tools to make it easy to outsource and pull in the assets. But I don't think we ever planned to do the voiceover because it was just going to be way too expensive.
Yep.
Okay.
I can verify that. German was definitely one of our earlier partners, and as Kristen just said, trying to re-record all the voices was just way out of our budget.
Yo guys, just a quick question. Would you ever consider joining the team of this project?
I would have to tell you that most likely everyone here is incredibly super busy on other projects. It's an honor to be invited, but I can tell you that we're most of us are deep in other new games and stuff like that all the time. So it takes up most of our time. But thank you for asking.
Fair enough. Thank you.
It's actually it's a respectable question too that bears thinking about. But I'll tell you, if there is ways that, like Jason said, I am kind of booked kind of end to end, but there are ways that I can help. I would want to. So, answering a question or maybe hunting down an asset, that type of thing. Again.
I would be as well, because as mentioned, I had a lot of the documentation that was about how we get the work done. I actually just found the design doc for the original challenges. So, I mean, we have between all of us, there's a lot of information that we could probably share that would help guide you. But with having a day job and having a night job and working on a master's degree, there's not a lot of time in my day to take on other projects right now.
Optimus, you said the magic word assets. One of the things we would really like to find at some point, we haven't yet been able to find from Web Player Cache, is the holiday event zones like Halloween and Christmas. So y'all ever find that and can put on to us, we'd be eternally grateful.
I will take a look and see what I've got. I have backed up quite a bit. I do have a lot of character assets in 3D form, and I just discovered all the old card art, the original source. But I don't know about the holiday event content for the zones. That's interesting. I'll see if I do have anything. I don't know.
Thank you.
I do have the working with Devin. I do have like a spreadsheet of the all the values of the cards and stuff like that and things like that from the card perspective. I don't remember how much you might have, Franz, of some of the designs on the headquarters stuff, but
I'm afraid very little as far as actual documentation. I was scared off of saving anything.
Yep.
There might be a repository somewhere. I don't remember if I have it or not, or if it's on a computer that's still alive, but I can certainly try and take a look.
Sure, thank you. We'd appreciate that. And I may still have some hard drive backups of, if I was lucky enough to make those backups at a time when those zones were active, I may have them in backups of my browser cache. I just haven't had the time to go through all those backups yet. So I'll eventually do that as well. But if you guys ever come across it, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Halloween special event zone with Doctor Strange and stuff. That was fun. I love that one.
Yeah, the zombie NPCs, and man, I love that. That was great.
I can just tell you, the whole team just was a blast. We had 4 animators and 3 or 4 character artists and environment team and the engineering team. I mean, just the design team, the QA team. It was just amazing. And for me, I'm just very proud to have been able to work with such a talented team to bring this thing to life, to be able to get it out to customers. I want to give my hats off to the community and the folks like you who are the fans. There's just so many people that I need to thank for one of the best experiences of my life in the games industry was working on this product. And I will tell you all, I dreaded it going in. Getting that call to say go present to Marvel tomorrow, get on a plane and go pitch a game to Marvel. Marvel had a tough reputation at the time of being difficult to work with, and in fact, it was the other way around. They were just one of the best. People like TQ and others on the Marvel side were just Joe Quesada, just a great guy, and we were thankful to put Carly's Ice Cream in there on behalf of Joe, and so. Just a lot of stuff like that we could do for fans, for the people we worked with, for all of the spouses and significant others that put up with long hours and everything else. We're just really thankful to have been able to create such a wonderful work of love on our part, and I hope the humor and the fun really shines through for you guys. And I'm gonna have to get going because my son wants to go take some pictures of some mountains while we have a little bit of blue sky out today. And so I need to drop off here pretty soon. And I'm sure the rest of the folks are probably getting that. But Crowdfoo, thank you for putting this together. Thank you for all the work that you've been doing for putting up a great fan recreation. It's amazing. Like I said, it's so good. I was able to jump in and show other people who'd never gotten a chance to play it what the game actually was like, even though it's not fully done yet. I'm sure you'll keep working on it. And with that, I myself am going to have to drop off and let anybody else take over. But I appreciate everybody's time here and happy to come back at some other point when I can find some more stuff. Really glad I was able to show off some of the stuff that I had, and I'm really thankful for all the rest of you guys for showing up today. Almost exactly, pretty close to the 10-year anniversary of our launch. So to all the people that weren't able to make it, thank you for all your work if you do come across this. And to all the fans, thank you.
Thank you all too. It's been a real pleasure having you here. You guys are welcome back anytime. You're the real heroes for bringing us this game in the first place. My final comment is also shout out to other members of the recreation team like Fire and Remy, Sir Doggo, and they've helped also, especially on the assets. A big help. So that's it for me.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us, and I am so excited to see what you guys do with this and get it going live. I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad to see.
Thanks to all the TAS folks who made it up today, and for the TAS folks listening in, because there's a couple of them listening in that didn't get a chance to speak. Thank you for all your hard work. You were part of the best team that I've ever worked with, and best project that I ever worked on. So thank you again for being there 10 years ago, and for going out and doing such great stuff on your own afterwards.
All right, thanks. Bye, all.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.